so grateful to have you here and to hear your birth story. I
So
mean,
nice to be here. Thank
yes, you're welcome. Yeah, yeah. Audrey is an amazing mother of 7 children, and of which triplets.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
at age 46.
At age 46. Amazing. Yeah. So, where would you like to start your story?
Wow,
Where...
well, I can just start with when I got married, I was almost 30, and I knew I always wanted a big family. In fact, my dream number was 7. And I had 4 babies in my 30s. I had my first one at 33, then 35, 37, 39. And I wanted more children, and after 40 I just couldn't get pregnant, and I was really surprised because I always got pregnant on the first try.
Wow.
And I talked to the doctors and they said, I'm sorry, you're too old, your eggs are too old, you'll never have another child. And I was 41 at the time, and I'm like, wait, I have a 1.5-year-old, like how's that possible? And they said, well, eggs have a certain shelf life, and at that point they just aren't viable anymore. The chromosomes divide abnormally. The odds of even getting pregnant at age 41 are less than like 1 in 100.
So this wasn't specifically for you. It wasn't that they looked at you and they said it's just a general.
Well, it was general statistics.
Wow.
Although they do this AMH score where they test your blood, and the AMH is something in your blood they test to see what your egg reserve is, and you want it to be, I can't remember what the numbers were exactly, but mine were extremely low, and I was shocked by that, and they were not surprised. But I was devastated because I not only wanted another child, I wanted 2 or 3 more children. I could feel that I had more children that needed to come here. So I said, well, what are the odds if I do in vitro that I could succeed? And they said it's sadly only 10%. Like it's a 90% fail rate at your age. And the older you get, it just goes down from there. In fact, at 44, they wouldn't even let me try. They're like, we feel too bad even taking your money because this will not work.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so.
And this was at 41 already. Yeah.
They were like,
yeah.
they're like, you can try at 41, but the odds are very stacked against you. And that was just like, wow, that blew me away. But I was so desiring a child so much that I just wouldn't be deterred. And I actually tried in vitro 3 times. And all 3 times it failed. Wow. And so by the time I was 42 and a half, I gave up on, and I thought to myself, I think I might have better luck naturally than if they're, pumping me full of these hormones and taking my eggs out and fertilizing them and, all this intervention, every step that they take. They say the eggs are really fragile, and I just thought, I think I have better odds naturally because the eggs are staying inside me where they belong. And so I continued trying naturally, actually prayed. I'm a person who believes in God, and I prayed and just asked God to please send me more children. And he reassured me that I would have more children. And I was just like, how? The doctor said it was impossible. Yeah. And I remember when I was like 44, and I just remember crying and just pouring my heart out to God in prayer and saying, is there any way I can have a baby? Like, I just want to get pregnant. And I remember the words that came to my mind, which I believe were inspired, were just slow down. Don't be in such a hurry. Like, I told you I'd send you more. It's okay. You don't have to be in a rush. And I was like, really? So I just trusted it. I really believed it. And I just thought, okay, one way or another, I will have a child. Yeah. And then...
And how did you pick that up, the slowing down? Was it like... that you wanted it too much, or was it that your life needed to slow down? Or?
No, that I wanted it too much. Like, God was kind of just saying, trust in my timing. When it's right, I will send you more children. But I just thought, wow, that's definitely not what the science and math is telling me right now. Yeah. But I just trusted it. I decided to not be in such a hurry, and it's a good thing because at the time when I was 41 doing in vitro trying to have another child, I did have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. Could you imagine triplets on top of that? So you really do have to trust in God's timing. Yeah. Or, some people call him like the divine, or the, people have different names for a higher being, but I really think that the odds of this happening were so slim that it just
Yeah.
had to be a miracle. The odds of me getting pregnant at my age were only 1 in 100, and then the odds of having
Wow.
identical triplets are 1 in 200 million births. So these babies are 1 in 200 million, and
Wow.
we talked to a statistician, and he said because those are independent variables, you multiply them. So the odds of a 46-year-old giving birth to identical triplets is 1 in 20 billion. So it may never have happened in human history, they
Yeah.
said, because there are only 7 billion people on the planet. So the odds were,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
so I just, like, every morning for me, when I see their cute little angelic faces, I try not to cry because I just can't believe they're here.
Yeah.
It's such a, like, I tell the story and I can't believe it myself.
Yeah.
But God is so
Makes me
good.
cry.
He's so abundant.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
you know, I asked for 1 and he gave me 3. Like, it's such a beautiful, happy news story that I wanted to share it
Yeah.
with the world. And I also wanted to spread fertility awareness, that
Yeah.
if you would like to have children, it's best to start young, or maybe freeze your eggs while you're young. Not that it's impossible, obviously, it happened, but
Yeah.
it is very, very rare. And so if you have the opportunity to start sooner, then I would encourage you to do that. But
Yeah.
So-
But did you know it was going to be natural, or?
I didn't know. I thought, well, what might happen is I might actually adopt an egg from an egg donor. Like, there are lots of ways to add to your family these days through technology. You can use a sperm donor or an egg donor. You can, you know, like, I'm married, so I thought, well, my husband could provide the sperm and we could get an egg donor, and then it's okay if, even if you've gone through menopause, you can still carry a pregnancy, a healthy pregnancy,
Oh,
just
wow.
fine. Like,
Yeah.
you can have a baby. There was a woman in India who gave birth to twins at age 70
Wow.
via in vitro with donor eggs.
Yeah.
Not that I'm advocating having babies at 70, but I'm just saying it is
Yeah.
physically possible
Yeah.
to have a baby well beyond even menopause.
I did
So,
not know that.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's
So
yeah.
it's
That's
so I
amazing.
thought maybe it would be egg donation. Whenever I kind of pondered and meditated on adoption, I just kept getting the same answer, which was, that's not your path.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because I was going kind of down the egg donation route a couple of times, and for some reason I just kept running into roadblocks and it never quite panned out. And I told my husband, I'm like, wow, if we had used egg donation, I would be pregnant with someone else's egg right now, but instead we have our own biological
Yes.
children, which
Yeah.
is awesome. But I'm also a big advocate of egg donation because I just think it's such a beautiful gift, and
Yeah.
especially to women who can't biologically have their own children, and as soon as that baby's here, they forget all about the biology. I mean, that is their baby,
Yeah.
and so it's just
Right.
it's just a joy in
Yeah.
their life. And I don't think anyone should have to go through life, you know, with infertility, believing they can never have children if that is their goal and their dream. Thank goodness with technology now. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But for you, it never crossed your mind to freeze your eggs. It was never.
No,
No.
because I didn't know that I was running out of time. I was just under
Yeah.
the delusion that people could have babies in their 40s because I saw all the celebrities doing it. And I asked the doctors, I'm like, well, what about all the celebrities? And they said, well, they're doing it with frozen eggs. They don't tell you that part. They're freezing their eggs, you know, 15 or 20 years earlier, or they're using egg donors. But they're like, they are not having those babies naturally. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like, so many people don't know this. And I remember at the
Yeah.
time thinking, I wish I could put this on billboards across the world. Like, why don't people know this? And here there are all these broken-hearted women who try starting their families in their late 30s, early 40s, and are devastated when they're not able to have their own children. But
Yeah.
I would like that knowledge to be out there so that they can prepare in advance.
So if you see a big billboard,
Yes.
yeah.
Maybe when I'm a little less busy and my triplets grow up a little more, they're about to turn 2 on Saturday, and I would love to, like, spread fertility awareness. Like, I think that would be really important. If I could save anyone from the heartache that I experienced when
Yeah.
I was crying and begging God for more babies for 5 years, you know, I know a little bit of their pain. I can only imagine what people feel who have no children. I had 4,
Yeah.
but
That you're. I think I heard you say, I meant to bring these children here, and Can you speak a little bit more about that, or?
Yes, I believe deeply that mothers have a spiritual connection to their children, and that connection is eternal. And so that means without beginning and without end. And I know with our human minds we can't totally understand that yet, but I think someday we will, maybe in the next life. But I just know that they can call it mother's intuition, or but I just think a mother knows when she has a child missing or children missing, and I could feel that in my heart. I was just like, I know that not all my children are here yet. I know I have more. And you know what's interesting is when the triplets were about 6 months old, I suddenly remembered a dream that I had when I was 27. So this was almost 20 years earlier, 21 years earlier.
Wow.
And I remember in the dream I saw 3 little children playing in a meadow, and I assumed they were girls because they had kind of long blonde curly hair, and I remember thinking how strange that they all looked the same age. But I woke up from the dream thinking to myself, I know those were my children, and I felt this like longing, like I missed them. And I remember calling my dad and saying, is that strange to miss someone you've never met? But I just woke up like longing for my children. I hadn't met my husband yet or anything, but I just missed them. And I didn't think of the dream for ever, years and years. And then I remembered when I saw my triplets, their hair started growing out and getting curly and blonde. They are boys. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was the triplets in my dream. That's why they were all the same age. I just saw them from behind. I couldn't see their faces. I just saw them playing in a meadow. But I don't know if you want to call it deja vu or what it is, but I just feel like maybe time isn't so one-dimensional. Maybe it's more three-dimensional and we don't totally understand it yet. But somehow in my soul, I knew I had more children. And so that's why I was so devastated when they told me I'd never have another baby, because I just was like, no, that can't be. Like, it wasn't just a desire. It was, no, I do have more children.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And at that moment, you were not with another partner that could potentially.
No, I don't think I was dating anyone at the time.
Yeah, and
that
so there
I
was
serious with.
you were not consciously
and I just
trying
thought,
to.
No, absolutely not. No. I didn't know how or when it would happen, and it never crossed my mind that I would have triplets. I thought, I saw 3 children, and I thought, oh no, I hope I'm not only going to have 3, because I always wanted 7. There were only 3 in the dream, but those were the last 3.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I mean, and when did you really feel that you were ready to have your first one?
It's interesting because I wasn't so sure about having kids.
Oh.
I was pretty far along in my art career. I did a master's in painting. I was teaching at a university. I had traveled and backpacked Europe and traveled the world, and I had done a humanitarian service in the Canary Islands for 1.5 years. And anyway, I had had many life adventures, dated a lot of different people, and I had talked to all my friends who had children, and it seemed very limiting, kind of like, they'd be like, oh, it's been so long since I've even gotten a shower, let alone gone to the movies. It's been like a year, or I haven't slept for 2 years, and I'd hear their babies crying in the background, and I'd be like, oh, that sounds hard. But I knew I always loved children because I come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 8 kids, and there's not a single picture of me in my childhood without me holding a baby in my lap. I love children. So I think I knew that I wanted a child, but I was kind of resisting in the beginning. Like, there was a little social pressure from, the parents and in-laws, because they're like, well, if you're going to have children, you better hurry along because you're already almost 30. And I was like, no, not your business. So I was a little resistant to it at first, but then after we'd been married for about 1.5 years, we decided to try to have a baby, and it came very easily. We had our first, and I was 33.5. And man, when Marcus was born, I just fell in love. I was like, oh my gosh, I want like 10 of you. So my dad always tells me I was a natural born mother, and I feel that. I really feel it, I know it's not for everyone. Like, when I tell people I have 7 boys, all of them are boys. They're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, it's all right. I realize that's some people's nightmare, but it was my dream, so I'm good with it. But I love it. I love being a mom.
Yeah. And how did the pregnancy go from with the triplets?
It was amazing. Like, the doctors told me initially, they said, you are as high risk as they come. You're 46 years old. You have identical triplets that are all sharing the same chorionic sac, which means their blood vessels can cross, their cords can entangle. There can be all kinds of issues that come from 3 babies in one sac. And, you know, they gave me a whole list of everything that could go wrong, and I just thought, oh. And I remember and first of all, the miscarriage rate at my age was higher than 50%. I found out later it was 80%. I'm glad I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very high.
80%. Wow.
Yes,
yeah.
because of the age of the eggs.
Yeah.
They just don't divide normally, and then your body just kicks them out. Like, even if you get pregnant, often you'll miscarry because it's not a healthy child, and your body just kind of rejects, you know, just pushes it out. So I started getting nervous because of everything they told me, and I remember I was just thinking about it in my bedroom one day, and I'm kind of starting to worry, and oh my goodness, and I just felt inspiration again speak to my mind, which was, this is not a good use of your time. Your babies are fine. They're going to be born on time. And I was like, wow, I'm a person who really trusts when God speaks to me, and I can feel when they're inspired words that are not my thoughts. Right. And that was the thought, and I was like, thank you. I will not worry about this anymore. And I didn't. And the doctors were like, you know, we're going to have to monitor you, give you ultrasounds like every month. And the ultrasounds lasted almost an hour, like very in-depth, you know, a lot of testing, a lot of stress testing, a lot of things. But I just wasn't worried about it. I'm like, my babies are fine. I know they're fine. And so, and they were fine. Yeah. They're all healthy and beautiful. And I feel extremely blessed. I know it was high risk. I know they weren't making up those statistics, but I just was relieved that they didn't apply to me. And I did take precautions, like I put myself on bed rest, because the doctors were like, well, bed rest is kind of an old philosophy. We don't really believe in that anymore. You don't need to go on bed rest. And I said, yeah, but I'm late in my second trimester, and every time I sit up or stand up for longer than a couple minutes, I start having light contractions. And they're like, oh well, maybe you should go on bed rest. Anyway, I was very careful with my babies, and I, you know, eliminated any stress in my life. My husband really stepped in and helped with the older 4, and we had lots of friends and family that did all kinds of amazing service for us. It was just beautiful. And so, it worked out beautifully. I took precautions and then just trusted that all would be well, and it was.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and how was the birth?
You know, they wanted to take the babies 6 weeks before I was due, and I really at first resisted that, because I thought, oh, you know, that seems so early. I don't want them to come out. What if they're doing just fine in there? And they said, when you have 3 babies sharing one placenta, you can have placental failure toward the end. There's just not enough nutrients, not enough oxygen, not enough, because you've got 3 babies that are getting big, and they're requiring more, and it's getting dangerous, you know. And I also asked about having a natural birth, and they were just like, no way, you won't even find a doctor who will deliver you naturally if you have triplets. If you have twins, it's possible, but the problem with triplets is the minute you deliver that first baby, the placenta starts tearing away from the uterine wall. And that cuts off the oxygen to the babies. So you usually can get that second baby out within a minute or 2, but sometimes the third baby takes a few minutes, and you can't go a few minutes without oxygen. And for me, it was not worth risking any of my babies' lives.
You talked a little bit about the birth, or you want to say a little bit more about it?
I just wanted to say one other thing, which is, I believe first and foremost, this was just an absolute blessing from God and a miracle. But I do believe also that sometimes we can help facilitate those miracles physically by doing things for ourselves. Like, I had a dream of living in Kawaii, and I started living that dream. And I could just feel inspiration and vitality just pouring into me. I remember, like, I had some hair that was starting to go a little bit white, and I came to Kauai, and literally it started going red again. I was like, something is happening here. I'm just so happy, you know? And I think it's important to do the things that fill us with inspiration and excitement for life. And I also did a couple little dieting things. I lost the last 20 pounds of baby weight that was left over from a few years earlier. And I started running 3 or 4 miles a day. And I did a water fast for 10 days once. And they say that that can kind of like reboot your cells. And anyway, I just tried a few different things just for my general health. But part of me thinks, well, I don't know, maybe those helped contribute to facilitating this miracle. So, not a bad idea to do the things that bring you joy.
Yeah, and weren't the triplets conceived on Kawaii or not?
No, they
or
were
not?
conceived about a month after we left Kauai.
Okay.
We lived half the year in Kauai and half the year on the mainland, but they were conceived on the mainland.
Oh, okay.
But they say, the fertility doctors told me that what happens is the eggs, you're born with all of your eggs and they're all healthy. What happens in a woman's womb who is advanced to maternal age is that there's a more acidic environment in her ovaries, so that when the eggs, the last 4 months before you ovulate, there's like a growth period where they're maturing. And in that period is when things can go a little haywire if you're older. So the 3 months before I conceived, I was in Kauai, and something about the environment of my ovaries was much healthier. That last month was, on the mainland. But I just think in general, I just remember feeling like living a dream that had become painful to me after many years of not living it and pushing it away. I finally allowed it, and it changed many things in my life for the better.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that totally plays in or how much it affected it, but I feel like maybe it played a part.
I really believe that for these babies to come, for these souls to come, they want you to be happy. You know, they if you are too much in desire, and then they're like, I want you to be happy. you know?
I think that I think the cortisol levels that are raised during stress are not helpful or beneficial to conceiving. And I remember, after all my failed in vitro attempts, I remember just crying and telling my husband, oh my goodness, every day I wake up with almost a panic attack because I'm older, I'm 1 day older. And I just know that my odds of conceiving go down, down, down the older I get. So I was feeling like I'd wake up with this just pit in my stomach, and I just felt like, we have to bring our children here, like we have to find a way. I just feel like it felt almost like death to me when they told me I wouldn't be able to have them. And my husband reassured me and said, Audrey, it's okay, like we're trying to create a life, not save a life. So don't feel this like urgency and stress that like someone is dying, like your eggs are dying, because you're getting older. Just let it go. And, if it's part of our story for us to have more, we will. And we will create life. But we're not trying to save a life. And that really was a relief to me. I think letting go of stress really helped. It's so interesting because I could see the connection between stress and me having contractions when I was on bed rest. If my kids ever started maybe fighting, or there was any kind of stress in the house, like I would start having contractions. And so
and you were not aware, like consciously aware, that you were stressed, or
well, I mean, if my kids are fighting, I knew that it was stressing me out. Yes. But I could see the connection between mind and body and between pregnancy and stress levels very clearly when literally stress was causing contractions. I think what happens is your body is maxed out in pregnancy. Especially, I was told that the human body was designed to carry 1 baby. It's possible to carry 2 or even 3, but it's not designed for that. It's designed for 1. And so when the uterus reaches a certain size, the body just thinks, oh, it's time to push the babies out, which is why almost all triplets come 2 months early. Because your uterus expands to a point where your body just goes, no more, this is time to push the babies out because we're under enough stress, I just think
but do you know of triplets that are born naturally or vaginally?
I have heard. I joined a Facebook group called Moms of Triplets, and there were 2, I think, in thousands who did have their babies vaginally, naturally. Those people did not have identical babies,
Oh.
because the difference is that identicals all share one placenta.
Yeah.
So if they're delivering these babies, they have, multiple, either 2 or 3
Yeah.
placentas, and it's, in that regard, it's less dangerous than identicals for sure.
Yeah.
But it's extremely rare, and it's high risk, very high risk.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And how is it now that they're here? Like, how do you?
They have brought so much joy to this world. My little Sky River and Bay. I'm like, what would this world do without this amount of love in it? Like, these beautiful little souls, they just go around melting even the, hardest of hearts. Just the other day, I saw these 2 gangsters walking down the road, all blinged out with these angry looks on their faces, with their cool swagger, and then my little son Bay was just like, hi, 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 and they just like melted into smiles. They couldn't help it, and they're like, hey, And I just thought he can even melt their hearts. He can, But they have given my in-laws and my parents like a new lease on life. My dad says they're like one of the best things that has ever happened to him in his 72 years, and.
Wow.
He told my husband once, he's like, I hope that someday you'll get to experience the kind of joy I got to experience in my old age, having these miracle babies. He just adores them. My mom, too, she just absolutely loves them. They have given us so many hours of their time, like loving on our babies, taking care of them. And my in-laws, too, wow. Like, my mother-in-law, she was 83 at the time they were born, and she would just... She'd come over and she would hold those babies, rock them, feed them for 4 or 5 hours a day. She just, before that, she had very low energy. She was mostly just watching TV, just had kind of a sedentary life, and was sad that her nest was empty, and she's always loved babies. But man, when the triplets came, it was just like, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel young again. They were so like inspired and happy. They decided to build a new house in the babies. A house that we then bought from them later, and we live in the other half of the year. So I just saw that it breathed new life into my in-laws, into my parents, all the wonderful people who have come to help us with our babies. Like, our church group started a sign up, and we had people rotating in and out for the first several months. Wow. We've hired many nannies to help us. I mean, it's a big undertaking to take care of 7 kids and 3 little babies all at once, but luckily we've been blessed with the resources and the help and the wonderful people to get us through. And so it's just been, but many of the people who have helped us have told us that it has blessed their life more than they could possibly bless our lives. There was one woman in particular who would volunteer a ton and come for like 3 or 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and just, she said, I used to be so depressed. I would just go to my job, go home, lay in my bed and cry. Like, I've suffered with depression for years. And she's like, your babies just like brought me so much joy. I'm not even sad anymore. Like, she went that whole year without depression, and actually it's been a couple years now, and she's been fine. Like, it's like it changed her life. She was able to find a partner at age 42, get married. Like, she thinks it like really changed her life. And I just continue to see these babies spreading joy, and I think that they're the greatest gift I could possibly give to the world. These little humans that will contribute to society, that will love, and that will have beautiful families of their own, and teach their children also to be good people.